traders, welcome back to another video. Today we're talking best trading setups in the Forex market that I'm seeing right now. So let's go ahead and jump right in, starting with the dollar. So the dollar here actually turning around a little bit and actually starting to trend to the downside. We can see this using our moving averages here. We're using just a 10 and a 20. You can actually see on the 4-hour chart that we've really picked up some momentum to the downside, putting in some lower highs and lower lows. This is a market that has been on a massive tear to the upside. We can take a look at the price action here on the daily chart for a moment. You can see a massive upward trend. Now, just recently, however, we are sort of we're sort of teetering off what was just absolutely every single dip being bought aggressively. We're starting to see a little bit of a breakout to the downside, and it looks like bears might be taking a turn on the dollar, at least for the foreseeable future. So if we continue on, if we take a look at gold, we're actually seeing gold get a little bit of a push to the upside off of this. Going back to our 4-hour chart and applying the moving averages that we were looking at, you can see a bit of momentum coming in here on the chart. So anyways, taking a look at our moving averages here, you can see a nice push to the upside, a little bit of change of pace here to what was a really strong downward trend. The gold market seems to have found a bottom around the 1620 mark and is finding a nice higher low here as we speak. So this market actually looks like short term it has a little bit of momentum to the upside. So looking at price action on the gold chart, we can see that at least so far today, we've actually pulled back and found support around that 1655 mark for the time being. This looks bullish. It looks like we have the potential to come back and retest these highs and to continue our march to the upside here from a technical analysis perspective. Now again, momentum favoring the downside for a while, but just recently starting to put in some higher lows off of the 4-hour chart and looking relatively healthy for short-term upside. So there's gold. Next up, let's talk about the euro. The euro has had a big push to the upside with some recent news talking about the ECB wanting to raise interest rates as trying to stay competitive with the rest of the world doing the same. They're trying to get that inflation number under control with very high levels of inflation in Europe. The Edge Finder actually has switched to a pretty dang neutral opinion on the euro with this recent breakout to the upside, momentum picking up, but still hovering just barely in that sell reading. If I see any sort of break on the technical side to the downside, I will be looking for short opportunities myself. But again, that big trend is what's holding this thing from being a stronger sell overall. In terms of economics and fundamentals, I'm still bearish on the euro, but in terms of short-term technicals, the euro is looking healthy. So I'll wait for some sort of a break to the other direction prior to looking for sells. So again, looking for momentum to pick back the other way. And if we just look purely at price action, what that would probably look like would be a break of this upward momentum, like I said, and then looking for predominantly, a series of lower highs and lower lows. Not a particularly favorite market of mine at this time. I think there are more attractive things out there. Let's take a look at dollar yen together, and you can see USDJPY has really lost its steam, at least it seems like. I tried a little bit here off the daily chart to pick up a buy trade. I am looking to try and get long once again, but again, not looking like a healthy start here this week with the dollar yen giving back a massive, from the peak down to where we currently sit, 585 pips. That's a really big haircut off of the dollar yen. I do have my eyes on the 145 mark, which is this major level of what was resistance that could turn to support should we get a little bit more of a decline. Now, this is a little bit of a higher time frame trade as you're talking about daily chart moves. This could be something that plays out in the next few weeks, but something like this could be of interest. Again, 145, a retest of this past resistance that broke out very strongly. We haven't quite seen price retest that area, so if it does come down to there, I will be looking to potentially pick up some dollar yen longs on a higher time frame perspective. Short term though, looking at the 4-hour chart, again, we've got some momentum to the downside. I told you guys I tried to pick it up long here. It did not work out. I got stopped out and I'm perfectly fine with it. I took a small loss and I'm happy to move on. For now, I've paused my dollar bullishness as again, I mentioned we have a lot of dollar weakness here off of the 4-hour chart that we discussed earlier. Let's move on to pound USD. Pound dollar actually seeing a little bit of momentum here. So you can see we've really picked up steam on the 4-hour chart with some new highs coming in, right? Testing out that 1.16 mark just about, and now sort of pulling back here intraday. To me, this market is not something I'm personally interested in going long. There are some other pound crosses, maybe pound Swiss, things like that, that could be a little bit more attractive, but overall still a bit sketchy with the pound, as when comparing this thing to the dollar, fundamentals and things like that still look pretty unattractive. And I will say one thing that goes for the pound big time is that this retail sentiment here off the Edge Finder showing 69% of retail traders are actually going short on the pound dollar. That's a red flag to the sellers trying to sell this thing. You know, the crowd has gotten a hand of it. They're trying to short this thing. To me, that means back off, give it a little space, and wait for an entry on the short side once things sort of start to trend back that way. So I am still bearish on the pound against the US dollar, but until we see a crack on this momentum to the upside, I will be looking for nothing. So there's nothing for me to do here until we start to see failure, start to see markets roll over a little bit. But again, not trying to call that top. So dollar Swiss is the next one. So dollar Swiss, looking at the 4-hour chart, failed here. I actually tried again on this one here. So I've had a lot of success trading this one recently, lots of long trades during these nice momentum pushes overall, but I recently had an attempt that did not work out so well. I'll show you guys this. So I tried one more time here to pick it up on a retest of support right around the 99.40 level. That level did not hold and we ended up breaking to the downside. Now retesting that same area, it looks a little bit weak here and looks like it might go try and find buyers at lower prices, right? So the dollar Swiss seems, you know, it's still trying, but again, each time we see a break to the downside like this, I've just got to stop out of my trade and look for another chance at a later point. If I'm looking to get long in dollar Swiss, it would be off of breaks and retests, looking for momentum to pick up once again. Let's take a look at dollar CAD. Taking a look at the dollar against the Canadian dollar, we can see that momentum has shifted in favor of the bears. So sellers coming in here on dollar CAD, the Canadian dollar getting a little bit of run. I'm actually long CADCHF right now. I'll show you guys the trade that I am in myself. Okay, so here's my CAD Swiss trade. I picked this thing up on the long side. So I'll show you guys this. So I picked it up on a retest of support. And actually what we saw is price came down into this area here and put in a massive rejection wick. So I bought it right after that candle. I basically was like, hey, you know what? This thing is putting in some higher lows, looking healthy, broke out, retested and chopped in this area. But on a retest of this area with that much rejection from that candle, I decided it was probably worth going long. So I am currently buying CAD Swiss. My entry is right here and I've got my stop loss still in place here. I'm looking for a break of the highs to trail stops. That will be my cue. If we can get a higher high, that will be a nice signal for me to go ahead and look to trail stops to at least break even, but perhaps even into profit. Floating $338 on the trade currently, so we'll give this one some time. Next up is Aussie dollar, showing a little bit of strength here on the dollar weakness right now. We see the AUDUSD currency pair actually coming down intraday and finding buyers on a retest. So here's the 38.2, price shot down, found buyers immediately, and this shows a market that is looking like it's ready to do a little bit of running. So again, momentum picking up to the upside here on the 4-hour chart and looking relatively healthy for now. Not a market personally I'm looking to get long, as again, I'm still hesitant to try and short the dollar. But despite that, the Aussie dollar in the short term might have a little bit of upward momentum. You can see that trend, forecasts at least are looking like a little bit of trajectory to the upside, at least based on the 4-hour chart that we just discussed. But still, I have a sell bias overall. So what am I looking for to actually get short? Well, I'm looking for failure. I want to see this thing start to flip back the other way and see these moving averages and momentum pick up to the other direction. In terms of price action, what does that mean? Well, again, probably off the higher time frame, I'd like to see this level fail. If this level starts to fail a little bit more, right, if we start breaking underneath supports and holding that, I may look to try and get short on the Aussie dollar. Again, still bullish on the dollar, but waiting for dollar bullishness to resume before I try and assume that it's going to do so. So if I take a look at NZDUSD, this is our next one on the list. You can see the Kiwi dollar putting in a nice series of higher lows, higher highs. If you're looking at this thing from an intraday perspective, you might get a little bit of a run here. Looking relatively healthy. Here's GJ. So GJ, nice push to the upside and momentum actually picking up for the bulls here. So you've got, for the first time in a while, a little bit of a nice run. If we take a look at the moving averages, you've got momentum picking up to the upside. What I'd be interested in terms of a price action based trade would be a break and retest of the highs. So just going off this, if we have resistance in this area, looking for a breakout, a retest, and continuation play. I'd actually be interested to see if there's any bias here on the edge finder. So let's go pull up the market. We'll go to GJ and see if there's any bias here on GBPJPY. So not a bunch of bias, only a +2, which is basically a neutral reading. So we don't have enough here to really truly feel confident, at least from the edge finder, on the pound against the Japanese yen. Regardless though, I still think that from a technical perspective, putting in those higher lows and finding buyers could signal some opportunity to get long on GJ at some point. Not for me personally. Like I said, I like to look for the edge finder to give us some sort of confirmation there. Euro yen, much of the same, looking pretty healthy overall, some nice higher lows and momentum favoring the bulls. I believe this one is very similar with the edge finder reading. Now we turn quickly to the indices, which have overall seen a little bit of a push to the upside here recently, with some sell-off coming in here in the New York session. Now, interestingly enough here, when we talk about the S&P, the Dow and the NASDAQ, the Dow is actually taking the lead here. And part of the reason for this is when you break this down into its components, you have stocks today like Meta, which has dropped tremendously. So Meta down at $100 per share. This of course is going to drag the stock market, but with it is you have other titans like Google, which is down dramatically today as well, down to $93 a share off of some earnings reports recently that were just lackluster. So that's holding back some of the major US indices. Again, the NASDAQ down, especially with a lot of these tech companies weighing down on it. To me, still looking relatively healthy. If we actually take a look at the score chart summary page on the Edge Finder, we have seen recently some of the indices popping up here. They're trying, right? So we've got the JP225, so the Japanese stock market coming up in here. We've also got SPX, which is neutral, but not quite in the bullish territory. So something to pay attention to at the very least. A quick look at the bond market. So if we take a look at this thing on momentum, an interesting component is, studying bonds. A lot of times traders, especially Forex traders, they'll not pay attention to bonds, but bonds can actually be a really interesting thing to pay attention to. In fact, the bond market has gotten devastated, and you might be asking, well, why is that? Well, it's because interest rates are rising dramatically at a very, very fast pace, and that has put a lot of pressure, on the upward trajectory of the bond market yields. So the US Treasury yields have gone up tremendously, and the bond market itself is actually sold off. As this thing rallies, I wouldn't get too confident in it just from a technical perspective. Price coming up into this area, still a heavily downward momentum market for those of you guys who track it. Quick look at oil. Well, oil is up today. We have momentum picking up and a nice start there. Also helping with the CAD idea that I had. So CAD Swiss, the trade that I mentioned that I'm in personally, part of that is off the back of oil, which is up today. A nice push to the upside and momentum favoring the bulls here, I would say. So if I'm looking at oil, possibly some retest buys could be of interest. So you had this level of resistance that turned now into potential support. So if you get a retest of those areas, oil, and with that through sympathy, perhaps the Canadian dollar could be an interesting buy on a retest. The Canadian Central Bank, the Bank of Canada, recently raised interest rates, albeit a little bit less than expected. They were expecting to hit up to 4% as their interest rate, but we only are now seeing 3.75%. So a little bit of a disappointment there, but still, regardless, that is a relatively speaking to other currencies or other central banks, a relatively high interest rate to combat their inflation situation. And comparatively speaking, they're not doing the worst. So possibly the CAD could be an interesting buy, as well as the oil market with this recent breakout in this area. So something to pay attention to. A quick look at silver. Silver is making a move on up with gold, breaking out to the upside, now retesting. If gold is one that you're looking at, you might get a run here. And in terms of the commodities market, we're seeing oil, gold, and silver making a little bit of a push. There might be some upside that could come with these along the way. Now turning to Bitcoin. Bitcoin, a little bit of a volatility expansion here as the market has basically started to rally in terms of the stock market. The Bitcoin market has sort of followed through with that. Now, if you're watching Bitcoin and you personally are bullish on it, you do have this level that might be interesting. So you had this sort of impulsive move here from 19,200, give or take. Now a move on up to 21,000. Just barely touched 21,000 and started to retreat. So if you're bullish on Bitcoin, possibly that 20,300 level, which also lines up with the 38.2 and major levels of support, could be an interesting area to watch going into the remainder of this week and into next week. So if you get a little bit of a discount and you're bullish on risk on assets, if you think we could be seeing a little bit of a swing to the upside on the equities market and Bitcoin, like I said, will probably move in sympathy to the stock market. So there's some trade setups for you and some ideas for you to consider. Of course, please remember this is just my personal opinion, and if I take any of these trades, they'll be shared inside of our private Discord channel. All the information about how you can get access to the Discord channel, or if you'd like access to our market scanning tool that I showed you in this video, the Edge Finder, all of that will be linked down below in the description with promo code so you can get access for cheap as a subscriber. Thank you for watching. See you next time. It looks like you made it to the end of one of my videos. Thank you so much for supporting my content. It really means the world to me. And down below in the description, I put together some of my best resources for aspiring traders who are looking to improve. I've got some free downloads that could help you, some broker recommendations, and if you'd like to join our Discord or get access to some of our trading software, all of that will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.